Hello, hi. I believe you can all see me, or at least I hope you can see and hear me. So my name is David McGrath. I'm the Group Marketing Director here at Jersey Post Group. Firstly, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Before I begin, I think I'd like to thank Tom and the team, the excellent team at Triangle, for continuing to keep us all connected with the latest industry trends and movements and shakers over the last 12 months. It's been a different year for us all, I think, and not one that any of us would have predicted even this time last year, I guess, when it was all beginning to kick off. But it's been an interesting year. I think we've all learned a lot over that time. So I'm sure this session will really resonate with all of us. Of course, the critical role of transparency and information plays in today's, I guess, socially distanced and virtual landscape has never been more visible and more important, but also more, I guess, invisible in the ways we engage and connect with each other now has changed and continues to change. So I guess getting that balance right will only benefit your business and, of course, your customers. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today. And the title of today's session is Collaboration, Engagement, and Connection. And I'm really excited to hear what our esteemed speakers will be covering today. So we will have the following speakers during this session. First up, we will have Keith Callinson, Vice President of Corporate Public Affairs of UPS, and then we'll hear from Kate Mutt, Executive Director of International Mailers Advisory Group, followed by Clement Oven, who is the ICS2 Program and Project Team Leader and Director General for Taxation and Customs Union for the European Commission. And then finally, we'll hear from Nicholas Tabanare, the Commercial Director for Mail Americas. Each will be doing an individual keynote presentation, one after the other, and then we will break where we will have a 15-minute live Q&A panel at the end. So therefore, if you've got any questions, you're going to have to, obviously, you can send them in, of course, but we'll be addressing them at the end of the 4 sessions. So I guess without further ado, I'd like to introduce Keith Callinson, Vice President, Corporate Public Affairs, UPS. In early 1998, Callinson entered into the mail industry as the Chief Financial Officer and General Counsel for Regional Mail Express, RMX. He oversaw all finance and legal matters until the acquisition in 2001 by UPS, whereby he assumed responsibilities for all business functions, including finance, legal, sales, marketing, and human resources. In 2004, he relocated to UPS Atlanta headquarters and assumed the position of Vice President of Strategy for UPS Mail Innovations. He has since held various positions within UPS Supply Chain Solutions, eventually being transferred to UPS Global Strategy Group in charge of various projects with an emphasis on UPS Mail Strategy and UPS Innovations. So I'm sure we're going to have a fascinating presentation from Keith, and without further ado, I'd like to pass you over to Keith now. Hello,
Thank
Keith.
you very much, David. I appreciate it. And thank you, WMX, for allowing me the opportunity to present today. I must admit, I do miss presenting in person. I used to do it on occasion in Miami, and I miss meeting my colleagues there and you all there as well. So, but thank you for being here virtually. The title of my presentation is, private sector, public cooperation with Post from local to global. And there's a couple of high-level themes here. The first theme is, number one, working with Post in the private sector has been going on for a long time, 20 years of my career plus, and it's only accelerating, and it's a good thing. Frankly, I don't think there's any one company or group of companies that's capable of serving the entire world's e-commerce needs, or even letter mail needs for that matter. And so it takes all of us to do it and to do it well, especially within our respective geos where we have different nuances and whatnot. And the second theme, though, is that e-commerce is moving quickly, and it's moving even faster. And as David said, the pandemic was not expected. Nobody could have seen it coming, but that has accelerated things, I think, beyond anybody's imagination. There were secular trends that were already taking place, but now it's really moving fast, and it's primarily packaged. Letter mail is still continuing its dominance. It's important, but it is declining. And so we have to react quicker, not just private sector companies, but public companies, private posts. Nobody can stand around too long and wait because the industry will move on without us unless we move quickly. So that being said, next slide, please. The first, I wanted to talk about the United States. I have several case studies in general, if you will. The United States is where I started my work share programs with the USPS back in the late 90s. RMX was the first work share program company with the US Postal Service back in the late 90s, mid 90s. And since then, we developed many programs with the Postal Service, and they generally work very well. And you're going to see I have it underlined here in the middle there. It's up to us, but it must be mutually beneficial. You're going to see that time and time again, because unless something works for all parties, the post and the private sector company, it's not going to have any longevity. It's going to die. And I've seen it happen. If things are not mutually beneficial, they will deteriorate, and one party will walk away, as they should. It has to work for both parties. And that goes for any program, domestic or international. That being said, in the early 2000 to 2005 timeframe, the Postal Service was developing a program called Parcel Select. I personally worked with Jim Cochran quite a bit, who back then was in the product development department of the USPS, and us and a few other companies helped craft what is now known as Parcel Select, and that is a USPS service offering where private sector companies will pick up packages from a customer, from a shipper, and then they will consolidate them and they will send them down and deliver them to the USPS destination facility. And then the US Postal Service will deliver those within their last mile network. And it's a natural because the Postal Service has a last mile network where they have to deliver to every address every day anyway. So adding packages to that network makes sense. And frankly, it was expensive for the Postal Service to pick up and transport and sort packages in the middle. UPS, we do that pretty well. And so it was a nice synergy to where they could take advantage of their last mile network. We could take advantage of our upstream network, and it worked. And it not just only worked for UPS, but it's worked for several companies, FedEx, Amazon, a lot of many retailers in the United States. And the point behind this program, it is now and has been now for the last 15 years, the Postal Service's fastest growing program, their fastest growing program, and now one of their most profitable programs. And so it's one of those things where it's a good equilibrium and a good example of how public and private companies can work together to maximize and utilize the benefits of each of our networks. That being said, though, last mile delivery is only a few things we do with the Postal Service. We also have retail centers. And when we were negotiating that with the Postal Service back about 15 years ago, we had a lot of internal concerns, and from what I understand, the Postal Service had the same concerns. We were proposing that they sell UPS products right next to US Postal Service products. And both sides were concerned that we would lose volume to the other side, and we would cannibalize our own product because we were selling our products right next to our competition. What we didn't realize, and what was really kind of a neat lesson, was after we tested it, the volume in both of our networks went up. Both of our networks' volume went up because we made it easier to facilitate e-commerce for customers that needed access points. It's that simple. And so again, it became a win-win solution to where neither of us lost to the other. We both worked together to create a better solution for the mutual benefit of our customers. And that's the point again, it has to be a win-win. Transportation is pretty simple. We transport things for the US Postal Service, FedEx transports things for the Postal Service. I was actually engaging with the Universal Postal Union to try and get some international lift going. Pre-COVID, COVID, of course, put constraints on all of our networks, so we have more work to do there. But it's pretty simple. If we have a freight network in place and if there's postal volume that's in place, if we can work together, it makes sense. Everybody, again, wins. Sustainability, that's something most people haven't seen too much about. I encourage you, if you have a chance, to take a look at the YouTube link that I put ahead and put that into the computer. You'll see where the USPS and the UPS work together to create a collaboration on sustainability and how we can reduce the carbon footprint globally by using, again, the best portions of each one of our networks. So you just don't know where we can work together, but I'd say there's quite a few places. And that's the last point. It can be anything. It can be code branded products, geo-specific. The point I'll make again, it's up to us, but it must be mutually beneficial. So that's the United States. That's a case study here. Been successful. Clearly, we compete against each other. We have to do what each other, do what we can to sit there and serve our singular customers as well as our mutual customers. So we compete, but we also work together where it makes sense. And that's happening globally. I think everybody on this already understands that right now in the room, that the global network of delivery and transportation and pickup of packages requires both local and international knowledge, local, domestic, and international networks, very much like Parcel Select is for the United States, where you use the last mile USPS for delivering products into the United States at their destination. Now, what's happening, I'm finding so far, is that most post and private sector companies are working together one at a time. So I'll sit there and reach out to a post, either specifically to have a direct movement of product in and out of their country, or to have them deliver packages that we have into their country, or whatever you can think of in the middle. And we do it one at a time. Or we work through developed country posts, mostly developed countries, because they're the most established in the ETO market. You guys all know what that is, your domestic, your extraterritorial office of exchange. And that's where those posts gain access to the UPU delivery market through the UPU, and through their ETO. UPS would give a piece to the global post, and then it would be sent to the destination country as an ETO through the UPU. So one way or the other, UPS, FedEx, DHL, Amazon, Alibaba, you name it, the platforms are gaining access to a global network and last mile delivery, either through postal relationships directly, through ETOs, or through third-party networks that are not postal related. And again, it's import, it's export, it's local delivery, it can be retail. UPS has some retail presences in foreign postal retail outlets. Why not? The same as we have in the United States with the UPS store, where the UPS store is selling products from the USPS as well as UPS side by side. And so that is happening, again, kind of one country at a time, not holistically, but it is happening, and it's happening in an accelerated basis. Again, not just with UPS, but with all of the constituents, platforms, as well as our competitors. Next slide, please. All right. The thing that's interesting about a lot of the countries that we're dealing with now, especially the developing countries, is number one, everybody, all posts, all private sector, they want to have a global reach. Everybody does. It's especially with e-commerce, right? Doing what it's doing right now. Everybody wants to have the ability to import and export online seamlessly. A lot of IT challenges, a lot of platform challenges, a lot of reach to the customer challenges. We all have similar challenges there. That's nothing new, but everybody wants to do it unanimously. I'd be very surprised if anybody said otherwise. In my opinion, posts have the natural first mile and last mile position. They're already there in most countries, if not all countries. One way or another, some are more developed, some are less developed, but they already have an existing delivery network within their countries right now where they can pick up packages and deliver packages, and they can use either direct or indirect partnerships to send those packages overseas or receive those packages overseas. Those are already happening. The challenges that I'm running into right now are the densities. And so it's a lot of, again, everybody wants to do it, but it's hard for me to sit there and transport a UPS or transport packages in a dedicated run to a post or to a third party unless we have enough density to justify the ULD position in the truck, in the plane. And so if you only have 10, 15 packages a day or 20 packages a day, whatever it is, even 100 packages a day, if you can't fill up that ULD, at least on a weekly basis, it becomes very expensive to move product back and forth to your country. And that's where the challenge is coming, where I have a BD team that wants to work with posts, and a lot of posts want to work with us. But if it doesn't pencil because the densities make the transportation too expensive, then it's something that we have to forego on until the densities are built. And it becomes, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, of a chicken and egg, as you can see. You need the transportation platform to build the densities, but you can't build the densities unless you have the transportation infrastructure. Which do you build first? How do you do it? And that's where I think the Universal Postal Union comes in handy. In fact, very handy. They're a natural density builder. They're already, through the networks and through the postal networks, delivering packages and letter mail amongst the posts that exist right now. Adding every additional package to that network builds densities. So the incremental cost to transport and pick up a piece of package is incremental. It's not building a whole new ULD within a new transportation system. Once the post builds the densities through the UPU, then they can sit there and start to do more direct relationships outside of the UPU if they so choose. The Postal Service in the United States is doing it right now. Many posts are doing it right now with direct relationships from themselves, through the Kahala groups, or through the European postal organizations, or through others. Posts are already doing direct relationships amongst themselves or with third parties, again, directly through us or through extraterritorial offices of exchanges. So those are happening right now, and they are building densities, and it's actually working for them and for us, frankly. But again, the one thing I want to stress is it always has to be mutually beneficial. Post and non-post, it has to work together. Both parties have to win, or it's not going to work. Now, the reason I hit on the UPU a little bit is because in more recent discussions, the UPU has decided to postpone additional opportunities for the private sector to participate. I'm going to hit the nail right on the head. I don't understand it. You have 192 countries out there, probably 100 of which are having density issues, most of which are not having deliveries because from private sector companies because there's not enough densities. And yet the Universal Postal Union is putting off for another 4 years the decision to try and have private sector access to the UPU that would allow developing country posts to gain densities. I do not understand it. I do find it challenging and somewhat interesting that some of the posts that we work with the ETOs and some of the more prominent posts with the ETOs, not necessarily the ones we work with, but some of the more prominent posts are the ones that are putting obstacles and frankly, for asking or requesting through internal channels that the decision on allowing private sector access to the UPU be deferred. They're the ones that are creating the relationships right now, and the lesser developed countries are missing out. That's the bottom line. And so what's happening right now, we're going to go to the final slide here, is the normal is that the lesser developing posts are often being, back to that last slide, please, are often being neglected. They're being left out because they don't have enough densities to build a ULD. And now that the Universal Postal Union is off the table for at least the foreseeable future, building those densities for the next few years is going to be more challenging for those countries. And so again, I'll go back to the one theme. E-commerce is growing. The pandemic is forcing the growth and accelerating the growth quickly. And we will and have to deliver to every country in the world through a third-party network, through a post, through an ETO, or through a direct relationship with the post. We have to do it. We don't have a choice. The market demands it. It's nothing personal. Now, the question is, if you haven't been tapped on the shoulder yet by UPS, by FedEx, by DHL, by Alibaba, Amazon, or a host of others, if you have not, or if you're not delivering packages for them, that may not happen because others are already delivering into your countries and they are doing what they can to sit there and meet the e-commerce needs, and they will continue to grow and flourish. So bottom line, I guess, to summarize my presentation, postal public-private sector partnerships work. They have to work for both parties. I agree and understand that, and they will continue to do so because it's in both of our best interests to make sure that they do. And they're growing exponentially. And I appeal to any posts that are in this audience to reconsider their positions on allowing private sector access, because building those densities through the UPU is probably one of the only ways you're going to be able to get the density sufficient to start doing what other posts are already doing, which is having direct relationships with third parties or other posts in order to facilitate the international e-commerce growth within your country. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Keith, for that really insightful and certainly resonating presentation. Really great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next up, we're going to be hearing from Kate Moot, Executive Director, International Mailers Advisory Group. Kate is Executive Director of the International Mailers Advisory Group, IMAG, a trade association representing a diverse community of consolidators, hardware and software solution providers, and marketplaces and platforms. She's also president of Moot Communications, a small business that provides editorial and consulting services to clients. She previously served as vice president of the Association of Postal E-commerce in the mid-2000s, before Kate was editor of the award-winning trade publication Business Mailers Review for a decade. Kate continues to study and write on postal topics ranging from policy to operational issues, and has been a contributor to trade publications and has written white papers and provided speech writing for many postal industry clients. So without further ado, Kate, I'm going to hand over to you. We're very excited to hear your presentation. So we shall thank you very much and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. And I assume you can see my screen, David?
Absolutely. All is
Okay.
good. I shall
Thank
hand it
you.
over to you.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. As David said, I am the executive director of IMAG. I like to just show this slide to get a sense of who the members are and what we're all about and sort of where I'll be coming from in the presentation. As you can see, we are a diverse community of consolidators, hardware and software solutions providers, and the major platforms. And we have two members actually join me on the panel here with UPS Mail Innovations and Mail Americas. So I'm glad we're so well represented today. I'm going to build off of what Keith was talking about, which is this importance of the public-private partnership. I'm going to talk a little bit about it from a slightly different perspective. I mean, same perspective perhaps, but a little slightly different content to cover. One of the things that I'm not going to do a deep dive on e-commerce effect, just because so many other presentations have really talked about how e-commerce has boomed during the COVID-19 crisis. But I do want to say that e-commerce has proved indispensable to a functioning society during the pandemic. And I would add to that partnering between the public and private sector has also been indispensable. It's not clear to me that packages and mail could have been delivered without this partnership, giving all of the service challenges that both the private sector and the posts have faced. So Keith actually talked about work sharing. I won't spend much time on this, but he did say, he gave the example of Parcel Select. And just for a quick understanding of what work sharing is, this is really how partnership has been built in the United States. The Postal Service offers postage discounts to mailers or shippers for doing the mail prep or distribution work that the Postal Service itself would otherwise have to perform. So the cost that the Postal Service avoids, it passes on in the form of work sharing discounts. And of course, that helps to improve efficiency, it reduces costs, and then the shared customer of both the private sector partner and the Postal Service benefit. And while we have we don't have a liberalized letter mail monopoly or letter monopoly here in the United States, competition has been opened up upstream, and we thus have one of the most liberalized postal markets in the world. So again, the concept of work sharing is the same in the domestic side as it is in the international. It's, you know, passing on the avoided costs in the form of a discount, encouraging a more efficient partner to do the work. I just wanted to show you real quick that the shared customer is slightly different on the domestic side. The recipient or the household consumer is the shared customer. And Keith talked a little bit about Parcel Select as a good example. On the international side, in work sharing, the US shipper, which is the retail, say you're a seller on eBay, Amazon, or Etsy, you would be the shared customer of the service provider and the Postal Service. And the goal, of course, is to give you the best possible service, price, and visibility that the US shipper would like. So I just wanted to say too, this is, graphics maybe aren't my thing, but and the supply chain partners, I kind of created rather large buckets. Obviously, the supply chain is quite extensive, but I've kind of just grouped, at least based on my membership, in sort of a handful of buckets here. But what I wanted to show is that why I'm focusing a discussion on the public-private partnership with the Postal Service, the solutions providers and the consolidators, the supply chain partners are looking to give the shared customer a number of options so that they have all the options to serve them and available to them. So, you know, essentially there's three real things that the customer is looking for: is price, service, and visibility. And occasionally 2 out of those 3 might be more important than another. So say speed and extensive visibility is important. Maybe an integrator is the solution for taking it to the foreign destination, to the destination country. Direct entry providers are a growing opportunity as well. So the point here is that I'm trying to sort of explain is how and I think Keith hit on this as well, that you can be competitors in the market, but also partners. And the whole point and the whole goal is to provide the best possible experience to the shared customer. So I am going to just walk through a little bit of the struggles through the pandemic, just because I think it highlights how important partnership is. And the entire network was stressed when the kind of world shut down in March of 2020. I mean, we all know how the loss of airlift, passenger airlift, really just put a real amount of difficulty in moving goods around the world. About half of air cargo is carried in the belly of passenger flights, not dedicated freighters. And nearly all of the Postal Service's international mail flies on commercial carriers, with the exception of what's trucked into Canada. Postal Service has gone from something like 15,000 routes out of its international service centers down to, I think, about 4,000 now. So there's been a real loss of lift to move things around the world. Back in the spring, they Postal Service did something it hadn't done in 20 years, which was to put its products on ocean freight. They created a lane from the New York City JFK International Service Center to Rotterdam to serve a number of European countries. There were a few ocean vessels that moved out of the West Coast to Brazil to clear some volume. And everything went on there. So if you paid for an express service or a priority mail service, it went on the ship. And this was a way just to keep mail moving when there was no airlift. But of course, good price, and it kept things moving, but it was a very slow service, and there was a loss of visibility to some degree, especially at the start when the Postal Service kind of rediscovered that its systems aren't set up for ocean and surface transportation. And so there's a sense that, oops, excuse me, I just do something and share my screen. Uh-oh.
We can still see your screen, Kate.
All right, I only see myself. Can someone tell me how to go back? Okay, sorry, I apologize. Okay, so anyways, the last point on this slide is just that the loss of visibility, at least initially before scanning and clearing seeing the receptacles being loaded on the ship, led to some difficulties in customer satisfaction. Obviously, service was slow, but also not being able to see where things are, or having that full visibility made it difficult to keep customers informed. So while all that was going on, we also had we were getting ready for the July rate increase that came about because of the changes from the Extraordinary Congress of the UPU, where the terminal dues system was reformed, and the United States was moving to charge self-declared rates on inbound packets, and reciprocating countries could charge the US on outbound shipments, also could charge self-declared rates. All of that happened in July of 2020. It was not on retail rates, but the commercial contracts, which all of my members have for the most part, were changed to reflect the increase in rates because of the move to self-declared. So while of course the inbound rate in particular from China went up quite considerably, some of the outbound lanes increased as well. So you had service issues, you had COVID challenges, you had some of those visibility hiccups that I noted at the start of the pandemic, and all of that with a price increase on top of it. So what that led to is, of course, some unhappy customers. And one of the things that we discovered, and we work very closely with the Postal Service, we have a good relationship or good partnership in trying to work through issues, is that data visibility and communication were absolutely key to keeping customers informed. And also in helping to manage their expectations. I think people understood that this was a very unique situation, and products were going to take longer. But if you couldn't even tell them, where something was or how long, or even an estimate, it was very difficult customer service situation. But by having some visibility, you could manage those expectations and keep customers informed. So a little bit of what the industry partners did during this time and what they continue to do, because a lot of the service challenges continue. It's certainly much improved, but there still remain some difficulties because of the reduction in airlift. So among the ways IMAG members try to serve the shared customer we had the consolidators and the service providers pay postage refunds to the end user customer. The consolidators and the service providers are the permit holders, so they pay postage to the Postal Service, but they went ahead and refunded the end user customer, because they just needed to keep satisfied customers. Number of service providers banded together to secure air charters. We had one member go through the certification process with the Federal Maritime Commission to become an ocean transport provider. It's an awful lot of hoops to jump through, but it was a way to keep things moving. We have one member who's going to be speaking later here who became an air supplier to the Postal Service for Latin America, facilitated an air supply arrangement. Every single one of the customers has to handle the customer service complaints, so they become sort of the de facto customer service providers. And then as an association, we worked very closely with the Postal Service. We created a couple of working groups to tackle some of the bigger issues and the ongoing issues, one of those being visibility on receptacle scans and creating a solution where scan reports were pushed out weekly to the consolidator members so they could see exactly where things were. We had some scan data added to those reports so we could see when they were with the airlines, if they were wheels up and wheels down scans for the airlines. And then we created a postage refund solution, or a process anyways, with the Postal Service so members could try to seek refunds on lost commercial e-packet products if they never got an in-country scan. So very proud of the work we did there, and it's been, like I said, a real partnership and collaboration with the Postal Service. I will say that the service levels, the service struggles and the timing of the self-declared rates have really hurt the volume in international, which is already in something of a declining trend for the past few years. And it's a small part of the Postal Service's overall revenue, but we see it as a very important growth opportunity, a $2.4 billion market when it's part of just part of about 73 billion in total operating revenue might not seem like a lot, but I just heard, Australia Post say they want to earn $1 billion in their cross-border or international. That's their target for cross-border and international revenue, and here we are starting well above that. So I just have a couple more slides, and I won't spend a lot of time on it. This is really a kind of a reflection of what I just described. The downward trend is the red line is the volume, international volume for the Postal Service, and the blue line is revenue, where it's moderated a bit by the price increases that have taken effect, essentially 3 of them in the last year and a half or so, January 2020, July 2020, and again the annual price adjustment in January 2021. I'm going to show one more. I know this is difficult to see, and again, it's more of a trend for you, but if you look at the lime green colored line, that is the inbound. On the left is the inbound revenue, and you can see that started to really plummet as it was getting close to the taking effect of the self-declared rates. Q3 would have been right before the self-declared rates took effect. Again, Q4 would include that timeline, and here you have the first quarter of 2021, and that line continues to be very below. It continues to be in a declining mode. Stuff's still coming in from China, so it's definitely not like that's dried up. It's just that it's not coming in through the international postal products of the Postal Service. Could be coming through their domestic GDE, and then getting entered into coming through GDE and getting entered into the domestic mail stream. It's also coming in different ways. So my last slide, just to say that there's any number of challenges, just sort of getting the mail out the door every day, with the service being difficult, with countries still being on lockdown, with airlift still being restricted. And then, of course, the issue of data is such a huge piece of the puzzle as well. On the inbound, we have the STOP Act, which requires advanced electronic data on 100% of shipments coming into the US, while the Customs and Border Protection rulemaking gives a 1-year grace period on enforcement. The Postal Service is still pressing Foreign Post to meet that 100% requirement. There's stepped up effort on the export compliance side, so that's on the US outbound. The Postal Service is now demanding also 100% compliance there, because that's what posts around the world are requiring. The ICS2 is, and I know that's Clement's going to speak to that next, and I've had people tell me they can't wait to hear his update. So, you know, and then the VAT, EU VAT elimination of the de minimis on July 1, that's another hurdle. And so I think what I'm just going to leave you with is a recommendation that if you are in the cross-border market or you're looking to expand there, you know, service provider can help you do all of these things. And it's a way to enter the market and to expand in the market. Let them keep tabs on all of the important stuff, and you just get your products out the door. And so with that, that is the end of my presentation, and I look forward to taking some questions at the end.
Thank you, Kay. Really excellent presentation, and again, something which certainly resonates with the business I'm predominantly working in here at Jersey Post, especially. So, yeah, really interesting, and thank you for that really insightful presentation. Really great.
Thank you.
So next up, we're going to hear from Clement Oven. Clement is the Director General for Taxation and Customs Union, European Commission. Clement has held different advisory positions at the General Directorate for Customs in Slovenia, Public Administration, prior to joining the European Commission in 2005. Up until 2017, he held a policy officer position at Director General for Taxation and Customs, DGTAXUD, which is a mouthful. Clement was responsible for the policy development of the European Union's strategic and operational framework in the field of customs, external border and supply chain security, risk management and controls. After that, he took the role of project manager in charge of reform of the EU Customs Advanced Cargo Information System, a large-scale IT system that supports customs advanced security risk assessment for all cargo and mail entering the EU via all transport, including air, sea, road, and rail. In 2018, he took a leadership position of a multidisciplinary task force responsible for the delivery of the Customs Pre-Arrival Security and Safety Risk Management Program, underpinned by ICS2. After the operational launch of ICS2 in March 2021, he now holds the head of security, a sector for security and safety risk management and analytics position. He continues to lead on the delivery of the ICS2 program. I will now hand you over to Clement. Are you there, Clement?
Yes, hi. Hello, David. Hi, and thank you very much for giving the opportunity to. I can join this my first time into the this important event. I don't know whether do you see the slideshow?
Yes, yes, we can see the slideshow. Can you see your slides?
Yes, I will just a bit because I'm using two screens. A little bit how to say juggle with the screens. Yeah, so thank you very much, and maybe just to say that when deciding, which panel to join in, it's a bit of a maybe I felt a bit strange to decide on this particular collaboration, engagement, and connection. But now listening to Kate, giving me the bridge, I think it's going to be a bit more easier job to explain. And everything that was said before on the importance of a public-private partnership and cooperation. So, from our perspective, from the ICS2, let's say, policy perspective and regime, we have been constantly, we're in a constant discussion with the EU postal operators and associations, and they have been, I would say, continuously appealing to us that what is the really key to the success for the whole regime and the program is that we need to engage with the third country postal operators and we'll say the also express operators operating outside the European Union, so that this is a key to the success in order that we provide or get the right, we'll say, collaboration and operational implementation system. So then, yeah, my presentation will be looking more into the areas where we see that it's where we see a key element of the need of collaborate, engage, and connect from the perspective of ICS2. And it is really our own, I would say, experience. We are a bit of coming from the outside, Digitaxud Commission, regulator. We are not part of the business, but I would say that the experiences that we gained in the past years have been, I would say, are well connected to the, let's say, reality in the world in respect to the postal and express flows. So if I go to the first, so say slide, which is just apologies. Yeah, so was an entry slide deck, which is just a bit to show how we're going to walk through the presentation. First, I would like to describe what the ICS2 is, what is the policy objective, and where it fits in the overall, let's say, customs regime. And then I would like to touch upon 2 points, which is the how we our own experience in why we in a way at a certain point of time when we started to design the system realized how important it is to have the collaboration with the business partners and collaboration and connection. Not only with the European, but also with on the global level, and in particular with the UPU as such. So provide you a bit of our insight, our lessons learned of the importance of this aspect. And the last one would be to see a bit about where we see the importance of the on your position as you're acting in, let's say, in a foreign state vis-a-vis the European Union, where it is really critical that your businesses are connecting to the customers, to your shared customers, and to your, let's say, to the different supply chain actors that are acting in a chain of the movements of the postal and express goods. So to look into, let's say, pain points, but also the points where we see that engagement, better connection can help and mitigate the potential disruptors. So just going first to the ICS2 policy objectives, as in the title, yes, ICS2 is a new reformed advanced cargo information system that we have built. Basically, the launch of the first phase of the system is just 1 month ago on the 15th March, and it covers the air, mail, and express flow for the preloading risk assessment, and it's about collection of the preload electronic advanced data from the postal operators around the globe and the express integrators around the globe to perform, let's say, the additional civil aviation security measures, meaning the data intelligence-driven targeting by the customs authorities on potential risks of the improvised explosive device or incendiary devices that might be placed by the terrorist groups, like we witnessed in the Yemen case and Australian case in the past. So to target and to take the necessary mitigation actions at the states of origin. So this is where we are at the current, let's say, implementation. We are going to continue with phase 2 and phase 3 in March in the 23 and 24. This is coming later. My focus would be more on this preloading process. As you can see in the slide, yeah, this is basically essentially what the system provides. It's covering all EU27 member states, but also Switzerland, Norway administrations are part of a regime, meaning that de facto Swiss and Norwegian postal operators are acting the same as the European postal operators. They are considered as, let's say, destination posts for the ICS2 processes vis-a-vis the other operators around the world. The system collects, yeah, different data from different actors in supply chain, post, express, carriers, freight forwarders, and other supply chain actors. And it is basically a two-layered system. Earlier, Kate mentioned Stop Act. In a way, ICS2 is, from the perspective of postal or mail and express dimension, both implementing sort of a Stop Act measures, which is a customs security safety analysis and the controls at the external borders. So at the point of time when the goods are arriving to the EU, but also another layer, which is this preload layer, which can be somehow linked to the US CBP ACAS program. And what we at the EU with the ICS2 are doing is that we are framing this also in a way that we are covering the postal flows. So from what we can say we have learned in the process of building the system, and it is primarily that we looked into the global trends and drivers that are happening in the area, the dimension of the postal and express shipping. And we identified, yes, that 6 years ago when we started, let's say, to design the system and to frame the regulatory regime, that there are several, I would say, set of global changes that are significantly affecting the express and particularly mail segment of international trade. First of all, is as already previous speakers were clear, is an enormous increase in volumes of the small parcels and small packets. On year-on-year basis, we are witnessing more than 10% increase for several years, for a decade. And surely with the e-commerce, which is becoming now the preferred way of shopping by hundreds of millions of consumers, that this trend is going to continue. The next is the digitalization of the postal and express networks globally. And the third one is the fact that the actors in the supply chain are getting interconnected via the digital world. Meaning that the whole chain, which was in the past, I would say, more collaborating on a non-automated means, is getting connected to it. So all this is leading towards the, we say, merging of the digital and physical world. The fact that end-to-end, we are gaining better end-to-end supply chain visibility and ability to trace the individual consignments from the perspective of the regulators, if of course we capture the right information at the right point of time. And of course, we also see that this is driven by the business interest that provides, which of the fundamental important is a quality data driven processes, so that all these processes really depend on the right quality data that helps, let's say, achieving, let's say, the customer satisfaction and the quality services. So from that perspective, we have built the system and in a way leveraged on these drivers with our, say, internal regulatory point of view and the objective that we are interested in getting the early and as detailed as possible data on the individual parcels at the origin and not at the destination only. So as early as possible. We have designed the system around the Universal Postal Union postal data model. So we decided years ago to reuse what is outside in the world rather than to reinvent on our site, and to basically piggyback and to connect to the logic of how the information flows between the origin and destination posts and operations are implemented. And also we are fully aware of the cruciality or importance of and the position of the origin operators at the origin states, designated operators of the posts, but also express, in ensuring or in, say, helping and in supporting these additional measures in the civil security regime. So these three elements are basically a result of our, let's say, the leveraging and learning from the understanding how the business operates and connecting to that world. So I would just like to touch upon then on the 2 points where we would like really to have not a sort of a doom and gloom presentation, but it is really important that we pass from our side the criticality of areas where if we will have a lack of the connection and collaboration engagement on the business side, that from the regulatory perspective and enforcement perspective, this would and could likely, let's say, harm the business interest and the benefits of your shared customers. And here there are two critical aspects or elements that I would like to draw out, which is the data quality, and also on the other aspect is the implementation of the operational processes out in origin states that are really critical for, let's say, implementation of these preload aviation security measures. So what we see is that from listening to our postal operators in the European Union is that it is important that we have right data quality, and what can happen in the absence of that, let's say, information that would be quality, is that the customs operations and the procedures that we have in the customs in the ICS2 might lead likely to more referrals to correct the data in the origin. So that means that postal operators in the EU will send more requests for the information back to the origin to collect better information, better data, and to correct or missing data, for example. What is a potential, let's say, disruptor if these processes are not being implemented and the data is not being in a way rectified, is that air carriers who are in between the postal operators of origin destination and who are responsible to take the goods on the aircraft, with the new regime are put in a situation where they will implement their, let's say, processes on the basis of the completed risk assessments by the customs on this regime. So if they will not receive the, let's say, the evidence that the open referrals have not been closed or have not been addressed appropriately, they may decide to, let's say, prohibit the loading of the goods. And that would be, of course, a disruptor in terms of the supply chain. And on the EU side, our postal operators, of course, not being in a position to provide the necessary, let's say, information that is correct and accurate, will also face the risk of non-compliance and likely fines. And eventually and ultimately, all this process, or let's say disruptors, could create a problem in, let's say, delays in clearance and delivery. And then the other aspect is the operational procedures in the origin countries vis-a-vis certain referrals that will happen as a response to identified high-risk mail and cargo. And these referrals that are communicated from the EU customs via the ICS2 back to the origin countries, postal operators and express, can be, of course, the screening on the high-risk cargo can be only implemented by the authorized entities that are regulated in the EU and are under a ICAO convention. And it is important that, of course, if there is a missing link between the postal operators of origin with those entities where a certain cargo needs to be screened according to the high-risk cargo mail standards, this again can lead to the serious disruption, because the air carriers will deny the loading of the parcels and packages without having those referrals and the screenings performed and the action has been taken. So in the most severe cases, of course, under the EU regulatory regime, if the carriers or other entities that are responsible to act upon these referrals and to screen the goods, they might, in most extreme cases, lose the authorization to be able to carry the goods into the EU, and that again is I would say, a negative impact of actors not being well connected and engaged in this process. But from the positive side, there are several, I would say, actions that can be taken, and we are, very much, looking forward that this will happen as we are ramping up the ICS2 processes. Is first of all that the postal operators in the origin, our express integrators, you are in a uniquely positioned in a supply chain because you act as a first intermediary with the data source, be it the e-commerce platforms, businesses, just natural, I would say, clients, so private persons. Where we see the possibilities to improve the processes in terms of data quality capturing is that by ensuring that the minimum data quality standards are somehow integrated in your, let's say, systems and interfaces, so that there is a sort of a quality check when you're receiving the data, that the data is the right level of quality. Also, what is important is that in the case of, let's say, referrals for the additional information, that you are well connected with your customers, with your clients, in a way that you can always reach out and get in touch with them, and you can obtain, let's say, corrected information that is being requested on. And also, what is important as well is, of course, to be connected with in the postal world, in the postal flow with the destination posts, so that destination posts are receiving this timely, I would say, correct, adjudicated information back into their system, so that they can communicate it back to the customs. And from the perspective of the preload aviation security processes, so these referrals, what is important and what is where we see that the collaboration, connection, engagement is of fundamental importance, is that with your supply chain actors, is that your businesses are matching the physical flows with your data digital flows in a way that you are well positioned to be able to take the action vis-a-vis the request for high-risk cargo screening, to get connected with the entities who are I would say, authorized to do the screening, and to make ensure the protocols that I would say the response, the feedback information can be supplied back to the destination post in Europe, and back to the, of course, customs authorities, so that it can satisfy the let's say, the security analysis and I would say the clearing from the perspective of the goods, from the perspective of security, and allowing the air carriers to load the goods. So that's I think my final slide. And I apologize, English is not my mother tongue, and also was a bit nervous and stressed, and with the new presentation, and being also a bit fatigued with all these webinars and video conferences, but I hope that I was able to reach out and with some messages.
Hi, Clement. That was really, really insightful, and certainly didn't come across as nervous. So thank you very much for that really great presentation. So next up, we're going to hear from our final speaker. And our final speaker is Nicholas Tabanera, Commercial Director at Mail Americas. Something seems to have happened on my end now, I'm afraid. Can you all still hear me? My screen has just disappeared, so I will continue. Okay, great. With 15 years of experience in the postal and e-commerce sector, Nicholas has participated in the foundation and construction of Mail Americas. 8 years ago, having identified the opportunity to work with postal operators in Latin America and collaborate to make their service suitable for e-commerce, he promoted public-private agreements that gave rise to new logistical solutions for cross-border into Latin America. A pioneer in the development of tailored solutions for Latin American markets, Mail Americas allowed the largest marketplaces in the region to offer B2C products from China in a way they never did before. So I will now pass you over to Nicholas.
Hello, David. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks everyone who is participating in this virtual WLMX Americas conference hosted by Triangle. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet in Miami this time, but I hope that you are at home safe with your family and that everything is okay. The situation in Latin America is not good. We are now on critical stages again. The second wave is stronger than expected, and there is several countries with medical systems collapsing. I believe it was the right call for Triangle to host this conference virtually. Nothing. I would like to apologize in advance if I do not perform well during the presentation, but this is quite weird not to record the message and not being able to discuss or interact with the public as we did in the past. On today's presentation, I would like to address three main topics. First, why we believe that private and public synergies are game changers. Also, or the second topic would be how COVID-19 affected logistics businesses in Latin America. And the third topic is why we believe the time is now for Latin America. At the end of the presentation, of course, we will be able to address any queries that you have. Regarding our first topic on the agenda, on why we believe that public and private synergies are game changers, please let me take you back to 2012, when Mail Americas first set foot in Asia. At that time, cross-border mail was booming. I remember visiting websites that shipped thousands of parcels every day to the UK, to France, Netherlands, and the US from their own logistics operations. They had their own warehouses, and they were using postal and alternative solutions. Whenever I asked them about their volumes to Latin America, they would tell me, Nicolas, the volume to those countries are not huge. There's not much volume. People are not buying online as in other regions. I did understood that it was not only a logistic issue. Actually, buyers did not have the confidence to buy in Asia. They would rather, at that time, they had to use their international credit cards. The delivery solutions were managed by the seller, and one day they would receive the parcel through an express service, another day through a postal solution. And there was no local point of contact if something happened, if the customer had a query or they experienced an issue with the payment or even with the delivery. No, there was no communication. For you to have an idea, transit times from the Pearl River Delta into Mexico, Colombia, Brazil were over 60 working days. And there was no fully end-to-end trackable service available. There was no local customer service to provide any information about the parcel if you had an issue. That is why in Mail Americas, we started working with designated postal operators in the region. We target several aspects at the same time. First, we work on a fully integrated EDI, information transfer system. We implemented a new inbound process with DPOs and customs. We provided information in advance. Pre-clearance was done, and upon arrival, customs would check and control what they have red flagged. We also coordinate a flight schedule to maximize the resources upon arrival. And we reduce the air transportation transit time by partnering with some strategic airlines. We also added business intelligence systems to identify where the post offices and the last mile carriers had bottlenecks and where there were areas to make improvements. Finally, we developed a local customer service to coordinate redeliveries when needed. Transit times were reduced from 60 working days to 20 working days, and with full traceability in Mail America's platform. This was not achieved in a very short period of time, but once the service was stabilized, the transit times improved, the volume grew exponentially. You can imagine, I mean, before, a buyer had to wait over 60 days to receive a parcel from Asia. They would not make a second purchase until they received the first order. This meant that if the buyer was lucky, he would have to wait for 60 days, and he would buy as much as 6 times a year. By reducing the transit times to 20 working days, they started buying 18 times a year. This is already 3 times more than what they used to do before all these changes were implemented. We successfully implement this in Mexico, in Colombia, in Chile, in Peru. And we help the last mile carriers to manage international demand. In 2008, we also started working with private operators in some countries to leverage the service, adding express and courier solutions into our network. This enable us to provide one-stop solution for a wide range of customer needs. We converted our model into a multiple carrier platform in which we can ensure the service performance even during COVID-19. Based on the product weight, destination, and characteristics of the products, we can switch from one network to another hassle-free for the customer. Going to our second topic on how the logistics was affected by COVID-19 in Latin America, let me tell you that this was not different than in other regions. Local and international purchases increased exponentially. There was a huge demand for areas in faraway cities and foreign locations. What we expected to grow in the next 5 years was achieved in less than 6 months. People who never bought from the internet online did their first purchases. My dad, who is 90 years old, and he had never purchased anything online before COVID, started doing his shopping online. Today, around 80% of his purchases are done online. Everything by the groceries. The networks collapsed. There was a reduction of the working day. I mean, people went to work for less hours, and there was limited circulation. There was a high rate of compromised delivery staff because of COVID. There was also lack of transport capacities and delays. We had to be creative. Our partners converted school transportation and car rentals on delivery vehicles. Latin America is one of the only, I mean, it's not one, it's the only region that do not have direct flights from Asia. Other than Mexico, there's no direct flights. Air capacities to several countries were compromised. We have to start using charter flights to avoid delays in transit. You can imagine, I mean, in some countries, several platforms suspended the services because their solutions were not performing well, and they didn't have a capacity to reach the destination country. In Peru, for example, there was a full closure of borders for over a month. This generated huge backlogs in the processing of inbound material. In Chile, the volume grew so much that the airport infrastructure was not able to cope with all the shipments. there was serious delays on custom clearance process during October and November, just before the peak season. I mean, there's pictures. The parcels, the LD3s were allocated on the ramp, just near the flights, whether the flights arrived. In Mexico, there was an outbreak of cases within customs officials that reduced the manpower to almost half, generating considerable backlogs. Guys, fellows, I have been traveling around for the last 10 years. We met in several WMX shows in Asia, Europe, America, in UPU, CAs, and POC meetings. We have long talks with Atul and Gabriel Garcia from Casesa, and all the Triangle team, Neil, Katie, Stephen, in Miami, in Manila, in Hong Kong. The time is now. Latin America is booming. The pandemic has accelerated the pace from offline to online exponentially. Again, what we expected to achieve in 5 years happened in 6 months. It is not only that people is buying more, other regions of the world implemented changes that are making sellers to look to new markets. In the US, we have changes in the inbound of terminal dues, and also we have the Stop Act. In Europe, you have the VAT implementation for low values and mandatory data transmission. Sellers are looking to new markets to develop. In addition to the above, platforms have boosted the confidence of Latin American buyers. They have facilitated payment gateways, protected purchases, and guaranteed transit times. The most important thing that they have done is that they have enabled international sellers to sell their goods on similar conditions than domestic sellers. Companies like Mail Americas, like AJ, like Chris, and others have been working 24/7 for the last year in order to fulfill the customer needs. Networks have improved considerably and the ecosystem is fully developed. We are now handling over 3 million parcels a month, not only from Asia, but from the US and Europe. Believe me, the opportunity to Latin America is today. Embrace it, dream big, start working together, and let's hope that this situation of the COVID ends soon and we can have a proper discussion face-to-face in the near future and probably meet here in one of these beautiful countries that we have in Latin America. Thank you very much. Thank you, Triangle, and thank you all of you for being there. Thank you.
So thank you, Nicholas, and to all our speakers for a really excellent set of presentations. Really engaging and really fascinating to hear actually such a wide depth and breadth of converging of stories, really, which all have a certain resonance and similarity, but yet you're all experiencing them from probably slightly different angles, which makes the presentation format even more engaging. There are some questions that have come through, and we're sort of short on time, but I've got some I've written down myself as well, and I'll try and get through some of these as quickly as possible. My first question really was for Keith. And Keith, in your opening presentation, you talked about reacting quickly and partnering with government. And I guess my question for you is, how does a juggernaut like UPS move quickly when we've seen juggernauts fall and fail so badly in the past with that, when you've got an operation that size, it's difficult to operate like a nimble, a small, I guess, startup, or, how do you tackle that and how do you remain relevant? Sorry, Keith, you're on mute, I think.
I am on mute. Thank you for that. And that's a tough question, being candid. Before I was, as you read my bio, I was the CFO and general counsel and eventually ran Mail Innovations, which was RMX. And I do miss absolutely the nimbleness of a small organization. I wish I could say otherwise. Just approvals these days is a challenge. But that being said, it's also having the resources behind it to sit there and do it and have the word, I guess, for lack of a better word, to execute and try and get it done. And nothing happens in a microsecond. Don't get me wrong. There are some nuances in the markets that we will miss because we are a little bigger, a lot bigger, and it's going to cost us some time to get the approvals and everything else done. At the same time, the themes are consistent throughout, and the breadth of the organization allows us to theme the consistency, a multitude on a multifaceted, multilateral basis. So I don't have to do each one sequentially. We can do several at a time, given the breadth that we have. And so, yes, we aren't as nimble. I'd like to say we are, but we're not. Governments we work with, they have some of the same challenges. The Post as well. I get that. But again, the themes are not new. They're not something that we all have to tackle individually and remake the wheel. And so I think that the slowness, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it, for a big organization can be overcome. But the willingness to get it done and get it done right the first time, given their preparation and the lessons we've had in the past. So wish I could be more nimble. At the same time, I'd like to think we're trying to keep up with the market as best we can, and the market is quick. But again, the themes are true. Hope that answers your question.
Great, absolutely. Clement, we have a question online for you, and it reads: there are many rumors about how the custom side of IOSS handling will be working after 0107. Can you confirm, or can you talk to us about that? Possibly, it's a bit of a vague question, perhaps. Does that illuminate you?
Maybe if you could maybe just repeat the question again,
Yeah.
and I will try to decipher.
Yeah. Basically, it says that I think the crux of the question is there are lots of rumors about how customs is going to move forward post July. Have you got any insight on inside of that, I guess?
Yeah, so I would say that the question here is referring more to the EU import VAT requirements that are coming in on 1st July. I'm covering I would say the preload or pre-arrival segment of the processes, and ICS2 as such is not catering for, let's say, this second segment that comes in July. So I would not say anything about rumors, only to confirm that July 1st is basically a date where the implementation starts on this particular, I would say, aspect of, let's say, two-dimensional, I would say, or two-layered change in the EU. So we have ICS2, which is a security layer, and then there's an import regulation for the e-commerce and the low value consignments as from July 1st. And both, I would say, regulatory changes are going to be implemented in time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Pop in real quick, based on what Clement just said as well. I apologize real quick, and I'll make it fast. Number one, Clement, I feel bad for you being the most popular guy in the block sometimes for what you're trying to initiate. I totally get the fact that it's a challenge. Even we are having some challenges dealing with it. But UPS has been doing a lot of the things for many, many, many years. And frankly, allowing and working with Post and the EU and others that are trying to initiate things that frankly, a lot of the integrators have been doing for 20, 30 years is now allowing us, I think, a head start. So our lack of nimbleness, I think, is also made up by the fact that we're pretty entrenched in some of the areas that are now just being broadened to the rest of the sector. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I think, Clement, one kind of additional kind of double-barreled question again on this particular topic is one of our online guests is asking, they've seen a lot of national customs organizations not prepared for H7 data, and do you believe that's going to impact on customs clearance and lead to significant delays?
I think that is connected to this earlier question about the rumors, but I can only here confirm that the customs administrations in the EU are ready for start of the 1st July. So we are, I think, waiting for the economic operators to be ready on the 1st of July.
Okay, excellent. So I think we'll leave you off the hook now. We'll Kate, I've got a question myself from you. You talked a really interesting presentation, and you talked about price. There's some ringing in my ear. I don't know what that is, but you talked about the importance of price, service, and visibility. And I guess, how do you maintain market share and customer satisfaction when you lose control of those three core components, let's just say the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think that's maybe I should have a consulting business and charge for that answer, because I think that's the question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
service was so impacted, prices went up a little bit out of control, you know, because of the self-declared rates. But I guess what I'm going to tie this to the fact that one thing that's interesting about this is that it's for the Postal Service, it's a very good illustration of how competitive the market is. And as they look at their 10-year plan for their domestic changes and look to compete in the package market and price their monopoly products so high, I mean, their international trend lines are a perfect example of what can happen. You really have to be competitive across all three areas of that. And it's opened the door to what Keith alluded to as well, which is there's always a new market entrant ready to step up and serve. So it's been difficult. It's been difficult for everyone, but if you aren't able to adapt really quickly, it's that much more difficult.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guess my final question is for Nicholas. Nicholas, thank you for your really engaging presentation. And South America is certainly an area where we have close links, and we are working closely with. You talked about the explosion in e-commerce in a demographic where people were used to waiting 60 days for a parcel and then ordering the next one. You can imagine the limitations around that. How did you meet that? So if you've landed with a 5-year acceleration overnight, let's just say, how have you managed to meet that demand and remain profitable?
Well, basically, what we have been doing in Mail Americas is bringing more last mile providers into our network.
Okay.
In that way, we managed to keep the growth and maintain the SLAs. So before, we were working with 3-4 networks in Mexico, and we added more last miles. Yesterday we have companies like Muva or Trigo that they are now developing services in this country. So our way to react was to first to help our partners to develop their networks, and then to add more players into the service. No, and for us, we convert into a multi-carrier network, meaning that we are connected with all the networks in each country, and that allows us to grow and not have a cap on volume.
Okay, great. Well, guys, it looks like that we are out of time. I want to thank you all for the excellent presentations. It's really been really useful for me from a professional and personal perspective, and I really hope to see you all at the next event, and hopefully in maybe in the real world. That would be nice. So yes, thank you very much, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.